It truly feels like the freshest and most joyful rom-com I've watched personally in years. So, how does it feel knowing that A Nice Indian Boy has been received so overwhelmingly positively by such a wide range of people, not just people who are of the gay South Asian experience?
Great. Yeah, we've been to theaters where it's entirely white women watching the movie, having a great time. So it's been nice to see that there's such a range of responses. But I think in the end, specifics in good rom-coms always fall away, and people are just responding to the love.
Yeah, it's healed all our trauma. Success heals everything.
Yeah, I was going to say, is this the
Yeah.
cure to mental health then, doing a rom-com?
Yes, in America, success equals cures to everything. Financial success,
Yeah.
peer-to-peer success. It's all about that.
The positive reception to this film, I mean, it boasts what, a 98% on Rotten Tomatoes? I mean, that must be wonderful for you both, especially because of the really evil political climate we're in.
Well, I was equally as pleased that our audience score was so high, which is at 97%. And it just shows that people want this kind of content and they crave this kind of sweet, aspirational love story that's about the family as well. It's so antithetical to the current political climate, which is all about exclusion and fear. This movie is truly the exact tonal opposite of that. So we were really happy with that. It has a almost 7 million views for the trailer now, which is close to some studio films, which close I think shows I think that this isn't like an of obscure interest to people. There are a lot of people in America, even if they're not the dominant political majority, who are looking for this kind of film.
The story speaks to so many different layers, being queer, being South Asian, navigating tradition, desire, and living authentically. The film is based on Mahu Shekhar's play, but what aspects of your own experiences did you kind of inject into the film?
Well, I am a doctor, so we made the lead a doctor. That would probably be the biggest thing we did. And then aspects of his personality became aspects of Karan's character's personality, in addition to aspects of our own love story, where Karan was initially much more expressive than I was in the beginning of his affection and love. And we kind of inverted that and had him play, in a weird way, me in the beginning of our love story. And then we added other small, more random bits, like the wedding planner who's not in the play or the original draft of the screenplay. And I'm not sure what he adds emotionally, but it just suddenly felt very disarming to us to have this kind of toxic wedding planner who's saying all these mildly homophobic things, but has a primary concern, which is money. It felt so disarming because it wasn't like about how difficult it is to plan a Hindu gay wedding. It was about how absurd it is.
Honestly, the biggest thing was Roshan is, not credited as a writer on the movie, but he's a very good writer. And Eric Randall, who did adapt Madhuri's play, did a great job of making the movie not feel like a play and expanding the world of the play to make it feel like a whole world. But then when it comes to the practicality of making a movie of this budget with the amount of time we had, we shot over 18 days. The original screenplay didn't suffice with the budget. So Roshan did some really creative sort of restructuring and writing to make the movie makeable, but also more interesting. And then small things he added that are not really personal to our lives, but just his skill as a writer is, for example, the first date originally all played in one big scene, including the movie to the walk to the bar. And then he decided to split it up with cutting back to myself and Peter's characters discussing the date and breaking it up into those pieces, which then led to Peter and I improvising anytime we shot that stuff. So it was just little like things like that where he's very smart at being like, what's an unusual way, instead of just watching a date play out from beginning to end, what's like a fun kind of way we can do that, and splitting those things up and splitting up Jonathan singing and all of that kind of stuff is all kind of from Roshan. So it's not exactly personal, but it's more just his skills sort of as a writer that he kind of took it into that direction. Because this genre, Roshan says it a lot, it's rom-com. It has to hit certain beats. Like there has to be a meet cute, there has to be the first date, there has to be like the couple breaking up. So Roshan's always thinking about like how can we make that more interesting or different or put a different spin on it that makes it feel original. Because sometimes I think the downside of the genre is that it can feel like you've seen a version of this before in other movies. So you're always trying to reinvent how you're doing that. And he was very good at sort of doing that, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting you mention that because rom-coms do have certain tropes that we know and love. Like you said, the meet cute, the happy ending. But since this is essentially the first gay South Asian film, did you feel a pull to subvert those tropes, or was the idea to embrace them, knowing that just showing that perspective alone already makes it feel new?
Yeah, and theoretically, we're not the first gay South Asian film because there have been a few in India that have obliquely dealt with the issue. Some actually not even obliquely, but we're certainly the first one I think made in the West. But we were you have to. I feel you have to satisfy some of the tropes in order to make people feel the things they want to feel because they have ultimately come there for love, and so you have to deliver on that love. But we resisted the cliches wherever we can. For example, there are actually two proposals in the movie. One of them is very atypical for a proposal. The last third of the movie is not actually about resolving the couple's central conflict, which would be the structure of a typical rom-com, and more about reconciling with the couple with Naveen's family. So there are all kinds of things that are unusual and usual about it, but it's always the mix I find of both. And the thing you're dealing with rom-coms, which is the reason most critics usually don't like rom-coms, the reason rom-coms usually struggle with reviews, is because they do have to be sentimental to a degree, because you're talking about something as earnest as love. And what is sentimentality? Sentimentality is actually all in your perception, because the Americans are very reserved, for example, and I think the British are too, and they don't like overt emotion, even though they crave it. Whereas in an Indian movie, people are delivering weeping, blubbering speeches from frame one. There's no restraint, and the concept of subtlety, if you can call it that, doesn't exist maybe to the same extent there. So it's all sort of cultural. That's one of the things that's interesting about the reception to rom-coms is people bring with it their own biases. How open and naked should you be with your love? And I added the line about being embarrassed by the bigness of love because I do feel that people are embarrassed by it, especially in the West, and maybe to a lesser degree in the East.
I like it because it feels like the character of Jay feels like he belongs in a rom-com, whereas
Yeah,
Naveen isn't.
yeah,
And I
yeah, that's
like kind
true.
of contrast, like especially the scene where he's singing, because I think
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd have a reaction like,
That's very much Roshan and I on our first date. Me being the Jonathan Groff character
oh,
and Roshan.
Yeah.
I love rom-coms. I don't think Roshan ever really watched one until we wrote 7 Days, our first movie, which was a rom-com in some ways. But I love this genre. Roshan didn't even really watch comedy that much before meeting me. He was more of like a drama, biopic,
Hearing
searing,
drama.
searing drama
Yeah.
Oscar person. So that kind of, I think him working in this genre, he's always trying, in a way, it's good because he's always sort of being like, the basic cliche is not going to satisfy him enough. He needs it to feel a little bit beyond that. Whereas I think for a lot of rom-com lovers, even just the basic version makes you happy. But I think that's a lot of us. We're just switching the roles. I'm playing a version of him in that date.
Russian, are you now acquainted with the comedic stylings of, say, the Julia Roberts rom-coms
Yeah.
and the Kathy Weigels? Do you know them all now?
Yeah, I've watched them all now since working on 7 Days. In the process of writing 7 Days and the lead up to it, I watched a lot of them. Um, I was mostly not impressed. I really liked When Harry Met Sally. I thought that was a really good movie.
Yeah.
And then a lot of them I find just truly insipid. And it's almost like they're treated like frivolous entertainment. And so there's some kind of self-fulfilling prophecy where people make them frivolous. But my whole thing is love is not frivolous. At least it wasn't for me. I take it so seriously. And making it a comedy doesn't mean you're taking it less seriously, but making it a frivolous comedy does. So that was the kind of distinction that I was interested in. I wondered why they indulged to such a ridiculous degree in completely not realistic feeling plots. Because I think people would relate more to a rom-com that has plots that feel like they're within your.
I don't know. People chase people to the airport every day in real
Yeah.
life. People are stuck in traffic trying to stop someone from getting on a flight so they can tell them how much they love them. You see it all the time at
It's
the
so
airport.
cringe. I would just never. If I saw that, I would literally cover my eyes. I would feel so embarrassed, just like secondhand embarrassment.
There's
But
a Bollywood movie where they do this trope of running to save the girl is about to get on the plane and they're like, we must stop her. But in this movie, the entire family runs through the airport and none of them have tickets. And then the grandma's there too. And the grandma can't run. So like one of the family members is holding her up like a baby, like in his arms as they're running through the airport. And it's the most iconic scene. And Roshan saw that and he was like, this is just mortifying in every way.
Yeah,
But
what a problematic movie. They're basically trying to convince her to move into their house and not work and abandon her career and aspirations to just belong to their family. So basically the whole, but it's disguised as like a cute, treacly moment. They're like running, they're like, you must live with us. And then at the end, it's like a horror movie. She's like fully abandoned her career and is living with the man's family. And she's like, I'm so happy you came and got me at the airport. So movies are so full of crazy tropes. They really are.
You are already making moves on your next film, right? Something to do with Ryan Reynolds' production
Oh,
company?
I've written a rom-com that Ryan Reynolds' company, Maximum Effort, is producing.
Right.
And we are out to cast and trying to get it made. But it looks like another movie of mine will go faster, which is an action movie.
And current, you're going to be playing a serial killer in your next one.
correct.
Oh,
It's like I've finally gotten the role that really speaks to who I am.
Yeah.
And Hollywood is not easy, and I've had to stab some people in the back to get to this Zoom. So I finally got to channel. People say Nice Indian Boy is my personal life. Honestly, the serial killer is more of my true story of how I made it in
Yeah.
America. So I'm really excited for people to see deep into my soul. Yeah, it's called Fade to Black, and it should be out in the next year, I think.
fab. Well, I look forward to speaking with you for that as well, where you are
Thank
just
you.
a bit more serious and darker, like your serial killer, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
we'll do Jonathan Groff in the sequel, and it'll be like Mindhunter, like his Mindhunter character, and then my serial killer, and then they fall
Yeah.
in love, and then
Oh.
that's the
Wow.
that's the Gay Times exclusive for
Well,
this unwritten, unmade movie that's gonna combine these two random things together.